Welcome back to the Left Unattended podcast. I'm your host, Ron Sosa, and today's guest is Jay Setchell, founder of Never Quit Trying. Jay describes himself as someone who has been through more than most people would believe. And at 76, he is still going. He brings a lifetime of entrepreneurship, leadership, service, hard-earned wisdom, and a perspective shaped by a traumatic brain injury, PTSD, ADHD, and the kind of lived experience that does not fit neatly into a box. So today we're talking about what it means to keep learning, keep adapting, keep moving forward, and also what it means to ask whether the way we've learned to survive is still the way we want to live. Welcome, Jay.
Ron, good to be here, brother. We've been trying to get this put together, and I finally made it.
So I noticed I noticed your website and your story carries the phrase "never quit trying." So before we get into any of the neurodivergence and leadership, what does that phrase mean to you at 76?
Where do I come up with "never quit trying"? I guess that was just the way I was raised, and fortunately, I was raised on a large working farm, and so we had. We fed about 1,200 head of cattle a year, lots of hogs, chickens, and lots of crops. And, if you look at never quit trying, it's kind of like every year is another season in my mind. And every year you got a winter and you got a spring, and the world grows and you take care of it. And in the fall you harvest it, but your cattle and your hogs go on a different schedule. And they keep working. But if you're not trying at doing something, you're missing out on a lot. And going through my times I've been dead and got back, if I would have quit trying, I wouldn't be here. So it just continuously is on it. And I've been saying it since 1970 it's always too soon to quit. Never quit. And then the never quit trying part really came up when I was looking for a website, because I thought, what's the name for a website that I can kind of come up with? And it's just been recent. It's only been 10 months, 12 months ago. But I thought, you know what? I never quit trying. I never. It's just, and I've got a story why on that. And so I typed in never quit trying. Well, I didn't use my right hand because it's paralyzed, but I typed in with one finger, and it came up, and I thought, well, my gosh, I like that. Neverquittrying.com. So, but never quit trying ties into it's always too soon to quit.
Yeah.
Because how many people quit or quit trying when they're right there? Just that one more little thing or whatever they're doing or looking for, it's right there. But then they walk away from it. And then the next person walks. It's like somebody at a slot machine, you're pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling.
And finally walk away.
And you walk away, and the next person comes up and wins $7,348,000. It's like, why didn't I just do it one more time? But in my case, if I'd done it one more time, it still wouldn't have hit it. But if Ron walks up, He won the.
It never happens when I walk up. It's always when someone else walks up.
I don't do it. I don't go to casinos. And what I do, I get $5, and if I don't get something on $5,
I always go in with a budget, right? So early in my life, it was $20, and that was it. That's all I would spend, and I would play the penny slots mostly because and the one line, like I want to sit there for hours just with $20. And then I got older. I was like, I'm not spending more than $100. I'm pretty cheap and frugal anyway, so I'm never spending more than $100.
No, I'm frugal. I just don't get it. And it's like lottery tickets. When the lottery tickets came out in Illinois, the first day they were out, I fueled, and I had like $1.08 left. I paid cash. And that's how my fuel came out. And I bought a $1 ticket. I won like $17, and I never bought another lottery ticket in my life.
That's it. You won big. You're done.
I won big, and I'm going home.
Oh. So I think I heard you say that there was a story in the never keep trying. Yeah.
Oh, the trying.
What was that story?
Yeah, just briefly. When I was a sophomore, I took algebra. And when I was in 7th and 8th grade, we had a thing called new math, 1960, 61 to 63. And new math was kind of like algebra. And it took us farm kids or little kids back in this, we didn't have any of the modern stuff. And it took us and started throwing us like an algebra type problem into seventh and eighth grade. And I did okay in math. I mean, regular math. And I didn't understand it. Plus the teacher was the coach. And I don't think he understood it. So you know how that
Yeah.
goes. The teacher doesn't understand it, so he doesn't know what he's teaching. But but anyhow, I started algebra, and I knew I just knew I was gonna have a tough time. I knew it, and it's like if you believe something to be true or not true,
Yep.
you're right. You know, and I thought, and I started out, I tried, and I kept working out. Well, I ended up the first semester with like a C or a C minus. And I thought, man, second semester is going to kill me. And the teacher's name was Ron Malcolm, real nice guy. Wasn't out of college more than 7, 8 years. So, but second semester comes and man, I'm bombing it.
Mm.
I'm like I'm sinking fast. And we come to the end of the year and we take the final and I fail it. And I know I know I'm failing it. It's like, you know, and so on the way out, Mr. Malcolm says, Jay, would you come here a minute, please? And I said, yes, sir. And I went over and saw him, and he said, listen, today's Tuesday. Tomorrow I'm going to be here all day grading papers and working on stuff. And Thursday we got report cards and stuff. So I'd like you to come back and if you would like, and try one more time at taking the
Mm.
final, which I did. And I got there in the afternoon and I showed up and took it. And I think he gave me an extra 10 minutes. And I think just so I could do worse than I was going to do in an hour, or something. But I went up and I gave him my thing, and he checks it over, and he said he turns it upside down, and he says, Jay, he said, there's something I want to talk to you about because the end of the day is almost here now at this point, and you failed the test.
Mm.
But what I want to tell you is I invited 7 different people back to try taking this test one more time. You're the only one that
Oh,
showed
wow.
up. You're the only one that showed up. And I know that you already work harder than a lot of people because, school's out at 3:45. You go to work at Hart Carter. So it was a small agriculture factory. And I worked on grain dryers and pickup reels for combines and stuff from 4 o'clock till 12:30 at night, every day of the week, school days, Monday through Friday. And then I got up at 5:30. I got home about 1 o'clock in the morning, got up at 5:30 to help my dad with his chores. Then I go in, take a quick shower, have a bite of breakfast, go back to school again. I did that every day. So I was doing full-time school, full-time work at nights, and getting up at 5:30. So he said, I know that you do a lot of other things, but he said, you're the only one that came back and tried. And what I'm trying to tell you is that trying is going to get you a lot
Mm.
further than straight A's. Because straight A's, you're going to fall down at
Yep.
some point. People that get B's and C's and have to struggle or work for that are going to go further than somebody's straight A's. Because a lot of people just get it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I got that. That's not a problem. Okay. Well, but what happens when they fall
And they
down?
finally hit that adversity that they haven't ever been challenged with.
And they don't know
Yeah.
what to do. But he said, you are the only one of the 7 that came back and tried again. So I want to tell you, you keep trying like that throughout your life. And that was the best lesson I ever got in school.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I don't know that I realized what he was saying then, but I did later. And I can look at it now at the last 20 years of my life or at the age of 76 and go, wow, I mean, it really, because it came to fruition for all the things that I've done, entrepreneurially or corporately or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good story and it's true. It's just like the more you try, the more you succeed.
I love that story. It's definitely something I think a lot of people that I have talked to and the clients I've worked with, tend to have the opposite stories. Like you're not living up to your potential and you're lazy. And we've gotten a lot of labels from pivotal people or from, people we should be looking up to, like teachers and parents and whatnot. So
Right.
I think it's always refreshing when we get that teacher or that influential person who really like advocates for ourselves or gives you that lesson that makes something more meaningful than we ever had before, you know? I think it's like, I like to think of that. And I heard this term from a psychotherapist. It's called post traumatic growth, right? So when you hit that adversity, you use it as like rocket fuel to propel you forward rather than holding you back. And I've always loved that
Well,
term.
yeah, and I mean, and that's a good way of looking at things because, but I've always learned a lot more from failure
Oh,
than
yeah.
I have from
Oh, yeah.
success. A lot more. And so it just, and plus it upsets me. I'd use a foul word, but it makes me mad as hell. And then I'm going to, by God, don't tell me I can't do it.
Mm.
I'm going to find a way to do it.
I saw in some of your work that you described your brain as always moving, right? Always thinking,
Uh,
always going
I can't,
on. Like, what is that like from the inside of your brain? To try to
I,
describe that for us.
I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's because it's moving so fast. I can't think of a good comment. That's funny. Kind of funny to think. No, I'm all, I mean, while I'm talking to you, I'm anticipating other things. I'm thinking about something I've got later today. I know I got to go get another leg brace today.
Mm,
It's just always playing, and that's where I think the ADHD, I control it, and I don't think they had words for it back when I
sure.
was younger, you know, and I didn't like school. I mean, I didn't mind school, but school was boring because I came off a big farm and driving tractors and flying planes and doing. I mean, not by the time I was 14, I had already soloed, and I had lots of hours in with my dad, and there was always other things to do. So school is boring, sitting there listening to a teacher.
Having to
It's like
sit
we had an ag
still,
instructor.
like, yeah.
Oh man, it's terrible. It's like, what are you doing looking out the window? And there's a good meme that's got a picture of a semi tractor and it says, I remember when my teacher told me I'd never make any money looking out the window. And here I've been doing it for 40 years and I've made $2.7 million dollars and I own I'm debt free and I got two million in the bank and all I did was look out a window for 40
Yeah.
years.
Oh,
It's like,
I just wish
you
we could
know,
stop giving advice like that to younger. I hear it time and time again, and it's just like, you're never gonna be anyone. You're never gonna get anywhere if you're like this. It's like, that's so not true. You don't have
yeah,
no idea what the world is gonna be like.
no. And I grew up with parents. My mom was a teacher, taught music and some other stuff, and taught piano lessons in the evening. My dad was not a high, he was a high school graduate, but he was always on the board of education or president of the board or something, and he was an entrepreneur on top of everything else we did. So I was raised with that, and there's a lot of good words out there and good little sayings that people don't hear anymore, and I use them with my kids and with my grandkids, our adopted kids. If there's a will, there's a
Yeah.
way. You can do anything you want. You can be anything you want. You just have to do it. But you got to
Yeah.
believe that. You have to get that in, and you don't hear it once. You have to say it again and again and again and again, and sometimes a different way. But that's true. What you're saying is, I don't think teachers, it's like, they're not the
I
same
think
as
it's
they
well
were.
intentioned, but it's also really crippling for some people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of people like listening can recognize the feeling of like constant motion in their brain. I know I can resonate with that. I know sometimes it can look like ambition from the outside, but it can also be just like hypervigilance or problem solving, creativity, urgency, all
Well,
happening at the same time, right? There's always a song in the background of my head.
yeah, and kind of where you're going with that is and I'm going to bounce back on that
Yeah,
because I
please.
kind of got off track, is that's what I'm doing. It's like I'm always problem solving. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about, or when I'm in I have a van that I put my power wheelchair that I'm sitting in, and I transfer into the driver's seat and I use hand controls. And, how can I get better mileage? How can I do this? What can I do there? I check my time. I know where it's going to be. I'm very detail oriented. It's like, when I come back, I want to make sure I remember that because that can apply to something that Ron Sosa needs to know some information about that I need to remember to tell him that. So, it's just I try to reach out and help. I sent myself 5 emails during the night last night because my brain
Yeah.
was thinking. And during the night, I sent myself an email to make sure to check on this for so and so or help find out more information about that or take care of something. So it's not in a bad way. It's just always thinking about, gosh, I got to remember tomorrow to do this, or, what do I have? And I look down the road and I think that's something that people don't do much anymore that are younger. And that's look ahead 5 years, look ahead 10 years, look ahead 20 years, because time is going to go very fast. I spoke to a class of about 160 kids over here at a high school here recently, and they were all seniors. Half of them were ROTC, and the other half were just seniors. And during that, towards the end, they wanted me to talk about resilience and positive attitude and determination and all that, and we talked quite a bit. And it was kind of the end of the thing, and I said, by a show of hands, in just a minute, I'd like to know how many people in here remember being in eighth grade. Being in eighth grade and remembering how old seniors in high school are. They're big. They're driving cars. They're driving pickups. Or they got a job, or they got a girlfriend, or they're doing all this stuff. And they're old. I'm never going to make it. That's a long way. 4 years. That's terrible. I'm never going. Do you remember how many? Raise your hands. And everybody raised their hands. I said, okay, now you all are seniors. You all are going to be graduating in the next 5 or 6 weeks. How many of you realize and can look back at eighth grade and it was just like it was a week or two ago? How fast time went. Raise your hand. Everybody raise their hand. I said, okay, what I'm trying to do is pass on the message that if you don't think about your future and what you want to do and work on it and be consistent with it, have discipline and consistency, then the bad news is the next 20 years are going to go as fast as your last 4 just did. And when you think about it, think about that. Anybody, your listeners, whoever, from when you're a senior and look back how long ago it was till eighth grade, how fast did the next 20 years?
I can't even believe it's been more than 20 years since I was in high school. It's crazy. I don't even want to think about that.
It's been almost 60 years. Yeah, 60 years for me. And I talk to those people every once in a while, somebody from my small high school class in a small farm town. And we pick up and talk about stuff that we talked about back then, And when you're that age, you think, I wonder what that gray-haired old man's talking to that other gray-haired old man about. We're talking about the same crap they're talking about, except from our age, our time, And so it is. You look back, like you just said. I mean, we went out for supper the other night, and we were in Florida. I was visiting some Marines that I was, in the service with, and one of them said, "Oh, the guy that owns the restaurant is a contemporary of an officer that invited us all out that I went to boot camp with." And the guy says something about, Mike says, this gentleman and myself and Jay and the other gentleman here, we all went to boot camp together and we graduated. At the end of this month will be 58 years, And he said, 58 years? He said, I just went in 25 years ago. He said, I mean, it's like, I'm not even 58. I mean, he's like 45, It's like, so here we're sitting there eating steaks and lobster. And it's like, and that's why I place such a value, Ron, on time and life. Because time and life, having been dead and gotten back and almost dead multiple other times, and all my surgeries, over 6 dozen surgeries, and I've spent 4 years of my life, almost 4 years of my life, in hospitals, and how many people spend 4 years of their life in high school? You know what I mean? It's like, and it's forever. Be near dead and spend that length of time. And so the point is that time is what we just talked about with the high school kids that I just talked, how fast time goes. And then life, your life is faster than you can blink.
Yeah. I read somewhere that the reason why each year feels faster and faster is because the experience of 1 year in your life as a percentage of the whole gets smaller and smaller. And I thought that was fascinating to think about.
Your experience gets smaller and smaller.
So like when you're 5 years old, right? A year is 1/5 of your life. That seems like a really long time. And then when you're 10, it's a 10th of your life, right? So the year as a percentage of your whole lifespan, gets smaller and smaller. And so that experience feels faster and faster.
Well, I don't want to get to be 77 then. I know. Well, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do want to make it. But yeah, that I can see. Yeah, 176th of
Yeah,
your year.
it feels
Yeah,
faster and
wow.
faster. So I have a questionnaire that I ask everyone to fill out to get on this podcast. But I know one of the things you said is you don't know that how neurodivergence necessarily has been a barrier because you get plain damn stubborn. And so how has stubbornness like saved you or like been a benefit for you? And kind of what does it cost you in your life?
Well, no, it's cost me
Okay.
nothing. It's cost me nothing. In stubbornness, I mentioned it is that word is because people tell me that I'm stubborn. It's like, why won't you quit? Why would you keep pushing forward? I mean, after I broke my neck and I was told I would never move again, and if it wasn't for God, if it wasn't for prayer, if it wasn't for overachieving, if it wasn't for a lot of things, I wouldn't have ever been able to walk. And so I was able to walk with leg braces and crutches or a cane for about 17 or 18 years. Then I had more brainstem surgeries and then I was on a walker for almost 18 years. And then I had my knees were going bad. My left knees had 16 surgeries, been replaced. The whole knee's been replaced 3 times. And I've been in a power wheelchair about 8 years now. So the thing is, when people say, when I was on my walker, you know how people use those tennis balls on the back, so you can slide on a walker. I found a set of skis. They're about this long and they got just a little, they're made of nylon. They're supposed to last like a year. But I went so much and I did so much that I was buying the skis by the case, 12 in a case. And I would go through one about every month. I just wore them out. And because I just kept go, 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 go. And people say, God, why do you keep pushing so hard? Why do you? Well, because I want to accomplish something. I mean, my life is short.
Yeah.
I've already been dead. I want to get this done. And then I end up dying again. And I want to get this done. And then I died again when I was 31. So, I should have died 5 years ago. They sent my wife home to make funeral arrangements when I had
Wow.
COVID Delta, COVID Delta. And they said he won't make it. I was 71. I wasn't obese. I wasn't diabetic. But yet my lungs have been punctured. I've drowned. My chances weren't very good. And and the doctor said at the end of the bed, when he finally put me into the next, I spent 5 months in the hospital in 4 different hospitals from COVID. And he told me, he said, when you would kind of mouth to me on occasion, do you think I'll make it? And I had all this apparatus on, but he said, and I didn't want to tell you no, but I didn't think you would. I mean, we never had anybody. We had one young person make it. That was
Wow.
it in the whole hospital. So but he said, you were using the F word, something terrible. And he said, you'd say, I'm effing going to kick its effing ass. I'm not effing taking any. And he said, I asked your wife, by the way, why you swear so much? He said, he was a Marine. I go, I swore before I was in the Marines. So, it's not, but he said, but I think you owe a lot. You just did
Mm,
it. And I think it was because you were
okay.
stubborn about it. You weren't going to take no for an answer. And that's what it is. I don't mean stubbornness in a
Yeah.
bad way, it's stubbornness in a positive way. Why did you get there? How did you accomplish it? Because I'm not going to quit.
You always had something to
I'm not going to
achieve, right? There
stop.
was always an underlying achievement at the end of that stubbornness. Is what I'm hearing.
Yes,
Yeah. It
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
stubbornness for stubbornness
Yeah,
sake.
yeah, and I don't think other people see it from my perspective to see that I'm not going to quit because of what I'm attempting to get done. So they don't have any other word for it but say stubborn. So I picked it up being called stubborn, and I never used it on in a conversation until about 2 months ago, and somebody asked me kind of what you did. What do you think? Where do you think you get all of the ability to keep coming back, to keep wanting to succeed, to keep wanting to make things happen, to help people, to do this? I said, I don't know. I guess I'm just stubborn, and then they said, that's a good point. And so since then, I thought, and it's true, but I've heard it. Well, when my dad would be pulling his belt out of his belt loops to whoop my butt, when I was a kid and did something wrong, which didn't happen often, but And somebody asked me about that and they said, he really did. And I said, yeah, I mean, I lived back in the day with spirit of rod spoil a child, and I didn't get it often, but, did I say I hate you? Probably. Did it hurt? Yes. Did I do it again? No. So,
It's not out
but
loud.
sometimes well, sometimes you got to do it again, though, Ron, just to make sure that
Gotta
I got to
test the
try it
boundaries.
this way. Maybe it'll work. No, didn't work again.
Like, how
Here
close to the
comes the
boundary
bell
can I
again.
get?
Oh, yeah. I am terrible like that. And I've always been like that. But if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have gotten where I'm at. I wouldn't have succeeded as many times as a serial entrepreneur and doing the different things, or see as a corporate problem solver, or helping people or reaching out to people, because you never know unless you try. That's the whole point. Get back and
Mm.
try. And they use the word mindset today, but mindset's the newer word for the old word of attitude. And I've got an old Marine Corps sweatshirt in there that I've worn. It's worn out, but I still wear it. I don't care. I'm stubborn, right? Okay. But it says attitude is everything. United States Marine Corps. And it is. Get and back, I know you're younger than I am, but you probably still remember back when you were younger, that somebody needed to have an
Oh
attitude
yeah.
check, you know. Well, that was either a fist in
Mhm.
the mouth, or you took them out and got them drunk, or you did, what is it going to take to get you to look at it different, which is your
Yeah,
attitude?
attitude was definitely the big word back then for sure. And I think it was written all over high
Yeah.
school
And
walls and the school walls. Like, you had mentioned that if the workplace was designed with your brain in mind, your answer would be communication, but communication for each person individually, and everybody thinks differently. So how does that show up in how you run your businesses?
well, communication, with the lack of communication, and I talk about that from, you can talk about that through let's just jump into the military for
Okay.
a second. If you don't have good communication, are you getting air support? You getting artillery? Are they landing on you? Is it friendly fire? Is it enemy? Or some of the communication that we had back in the Vietnam days was, oh, well, you have to go to this command, to that command, back to Washington. Wait till somebody wakes up to get the information to fire back. No, bull crap. Go ahead and do it. But communication is, if I was going to come into you and try to, I don't know, sell you a product or a service and talk to you, and I know you need it, or I believe that you need it, I would ask you and say, Ron, show me around your place, show me what you do and how you do it, and tell me and explain to me how it happens and how it works, if you would, if you wouldn't mind taking the time to
Yeah.
indulge me. Well, that puts it on you to say to me, yeah, I can do that. Or I would actually say, Ron, do you think you have time to show me kind of what you do and how you operate and what your production facilities look like, and explain it to me? And you're going to say, everyone always did, yeah, heck yeah, I can do that. I'm the boss. It's my place. I want to do that. So they take you out. Well, when you come back, you get a lot of feeling about what they actually do. It educates you. You learn a lot. You couldn't put it in books. Throughout my life, by asking
Yeah.
questions and observing and letting people tell me. And that way you learn about communicating. So when I come back in, it's easy to say, Ron, I see when you were talking about that horizontal grinding machine can do up to 25-ton products, and it's magnetized at the bottom, and the top turns on it and grinds it, then you have to flip. And I can see where that's going to fit into these different headings in the phone book in the yellow pages for a commercial directory. And people like this company or this company or this company would be likely to use what you're doing. Would you not agree? Well, yeah. Matter of fact, we work with one of those companies already. Okay, but you're not in the phone book if you're selling yellow page ads, you know. And all of a sudden, you're not in this yellow pages in Oklahoma City, and they need a lot of your stuff, and you're based in Minneapolis. But you can look at it in a million different ways, but you have to
Yeah.
communicate. That gets back to where people don't care how much you know until you know how much they know how much you
Yeah.
care.
It's true. I think that for me, this really deeply connects to how I think about neuro-inclusive leadership, right? So it's about recognizing that different people process information differently, they decide differently,
Oh,
they remember
totally.
differently, and they even act differently. Like, so strong leadership, in my mind, doesn't just like communicate clearly, but it communicates accessibly across different processing.
Communicating effectively is like the old term reading the room,
Yeah.
but you can read the person. And do you talk quickly? Do you slow down your speech? Do you talk a little louder? How do you attack the situation, or how do you address it? By reading the room. Maybe what you were going to do just isn't going to happen because you now are reading it differently. You're in front of it. In other words, if you're going to deliver a message on resilience, maybe it's going to change because of how the response is from some of your talking.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to adapt and improvise and overcome, which are Marine terms, by the way, whatever you're going to face. Because, if I got to your studio and I came, not properly prepared with what I needed and I didn't know it, I'm going to have to improvise. As I'm improvising, I'm adapting. And as I'm adapting, I'm going to overcome the situation and we're going to get back to what we were intended to do to begin with.
I love that. The last questions I tend to ask all my guests is, what does left unattended
Mhm.
mean to you? And I know didn't really resonate with you. So I want to ask you it a little bit differently. So when you look at people that you've had to lead or coach or work with, what does it look like when someone has been left unattended?
They fail. They feel like nobody
Yeah.
cares. I think that's left unattended it gets back to the
Yeah.
same thing. It's like, well, what about me? How come I didn't get
Yeah.
included? I've got a lot to offer and you never asked me, or you didn't get my opinion, or you didn't, you didn't listen to what I said, and I've experienced exactly what you need. So if you haven't done it and you've left that person out, they're left unattended. I mean, if that's the way you could look at it, or one of many ways you could look
Yeah.
at it specifically as an individual. So it's like if you kind of asked me a question and then got busy drinking a cup of coffee and looked off to your left and didn't do this and that, I'm sitting there going, well, I guess he doesn't really care. I don't, he's listening. Maybe he can hear what I'm saying, but he doesn't show that any response. So I'm left unattended. So I think you can look at it in a lot of different ways,
Agreed.
or look at leaving your crops unattended. If you do that, you're going to
Yeah.
have a problem. It doesn't matter what it is. So it's paying attention to all the details and looking to help that other person or that product or that scenario reach its highest potential and have the most success possible.
Yes. Oh,
I
that's
think
my favorite answer right now. So Jay, if people wanted to find you or connect with you, where can they do that?
well, I try to hide. No, no.
That's totally
I,
fair too.
well, I'm stubborn. I don't know if they want to. No, I just have my website, neverquittrying.com. There's a little, well, my email is j@neverquittrying.com, but on my website, there's a little information, and it's not the best website. It's okay, but there's a little fill out form to fill out, and I've
Okay.
gotten one, or I've gotten a few comments, questions on it, and if I may, I'd like to share a little story that on one of the last comments I
Sure.
received on it. And the book I've written is called The Strength Within You. It's Always Too Soon to Quit. It's only been out about not quite 6 months now. And it's number one in two places on
Nice.
Amazon. One is motivational for physical disability and motivation and inspirational outlooks and attitudes for people between the late teens through
Oh, wow.
35. And it's really good. And it talks a little bit about my physical disabilities, but it's what you do to overcome and how you look at things as you're going through it. I mean, how would you look at it if they tell you you're never going to move again?
Yeah.
or you're whatever. If you look at what you potentially can do and what you have left and not what you've lost, it gets you down the road a lot
Mm.
further. And so, but I got an email about 3 weeks ago, or I got on that response form, and I don't know how she found it, but her grandson had bought my book. I don't know how he found it. We got it off
Yeah.
Amazon, whatever. And he gave it to his dad. His dad read it. His dad gave it to his mother. His mother's 80. The lady that wrote me the letter is 88 and a half, or the little email is 88 and a half years old. And her husband passed away about 5 years
Mm.
ago. And she said, and she explained to me how she got the book. And she said, I read it and then I read it again. And when I read it the second time, I underlined, it's short. It's, a 4 hour read. It's 165
Okay.
pages or something. But it explains to, really, it's about finding the strength within yourself, whether that's aggravation, irritation, pain, resilience from previous experiences, faith, DNA, family,
Yeah.
whatever. How do you tap into that to move through the adversities and the roadblocks and the detours you're going to have throughout
Yeah.
life, and not quit? Just keep moving ahead. But she put in, she says, the second time I read it, I underlined and highlighted and circled a bunch of different things throughout the book. And then I went back and I looked at it for a couple of days. And she said, what I'm writing to you, I want to tell you, thank you very much for writing the
Oh.
book and putting down what you did, because it was easy to read and it made
Mm.
sense. And it takes me back to the years. She's 88 and I'm 76. It takes me back to the years and then through out your life of what you went through. And so I want you to know that I did not want to care or care if I didn't care, and I didn't really know if I wanted to live to be 90. And she's 88 and a half. And she said, after I've read that and gone back and thought about it, I'm now planning my 95th
Oh,
birthday.
that's huge. Oh, that
Isn't
is
that
absolutely
amazing?
incredible. Yeah.
So that's what she got out of the book. And it's not that there's not other good books out there, but the problem is, and I've said this before, most people that do speaking or presentations, they a lot of them do great jobs. I mean, amazing work, but they didn't live it. They got it from reading about it and studying about it and making notes and coming up with a program and then explaining it, what if and here's how and this and that. And that's a fact. That's not that's
Yeah. There's
that's a
something
fact.
about combining
But
lived experience with research that makes it more powerful.
yeah, and mine exactly. Mine's lived and earned
Yeah.
and wisdom and experience. I mean, I didn't. I've been through it. I'm sitting here in a great deal of back pain from 15 back
Mm.
surgeries. And when somebody tells me they've had one or two back surgeries and they hurt, I go, well, I can understand that. Now take that times seven, or 15, depending if you had one. But, and I don't say it to slight what they're doing, but our conversation keeps my mind off my back pain to a large degree. And when we're done, my pain will come back and be stronger. And then, of course, if you're sitting there all by yourself and you're bored and you're in a bad mood and it's dark in here, then your pain is even worse. Even though it's the same
Yeah.
pain, it has different abilities to feel different depending on what you're going through. But yeah, I like that story that she sent to me, and it was just, I appreciate it, and I thought, you know what, I mean, that basically saved a life
Mm. That's
if
beautiful.
you look
Yeah.
at it, because she didn't one. How can you go from not caring whether you live to be 90 to planning your 95th
Yeah.
birthday?
It's I think what I definitely strive to achieve, and I think what most people strive to achieve, is some sort of real lasting impact, right?
Definitely. I mean, and I think that's what drives me is I've had lasting impact, and I had one one gentleman said, I've never seen an acknowledgments in a book, people thanking people that stood in their way or caused them
Mm.
problems or tried to keep them down, but you did. And I do thank them because it put more of a fire in in my desires and gave me more stubbornness to prove them wrong.
I think your story is just like, it's, to me, I interpret it as such like post-traumatic growth. It's that rocket fuel. So I appreciate you being here so much. I think we could talk for so much longer. But I think the biggest things I'm taking away from our conversation, I think, is resilience matters, but resilience is not the whole story. I think there's wisdom in refusing to quit. There's power in continuing to learn. There's beauty in life that keeps adapting. And then there's also the leadership's responsibility to make sure that people are not surviving on stubbornness alone, when clear communication, better support, and more human systems can help them thrive. So thank you, Jay, for being a guest here. And if today's conversation made you think about the way you keep pushing through, the way you lead, the amount of invisible load that you carry when everyone else sees you as capable, I'd love to have a real conversation with you. A discovery call for me is not a sales trap. It's a space to look at what feels heavy, what keeps repeating, and whether coaching support could help you lead with more clarity, confidence, and self-trust. You can book that at coaching.synap.me. Thank you again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Left Unattended. A huge thank you to my guest, Jay Setchell, for sharing his stories. And of course, thank you, Dustin Bays, for editing and making sure this podcast sounds as good as it feels. If today's conversation resonated with you, let's keep the connection going. Join my newsletter for weekly insights on neuro-inclusive leadership. And that's synap.me/newsletter. That's syn-apt.me/newsletter. Learn more about coaching with me at synap.me, syn-apt.me. And finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more people find these conversations. It reminds the world that belonging is not a luxury. It's a leadership strategy. Until then, I'm your host, Ron Sosa, and this has been Left Unattended. Until next time.
Drains our soul.